What is up, everybody? Welcome back. We are in Ruth. We are in chapter 4 of Ruth. And this is an interesting section because a lot of people, when they go wrong with the book of Ruth, what they try to do is paint it as this like love story kind of thing. That's one of the things that I've seen that I don't think is supported very well by the text. In fact, I think it uses the language, anytime it's using the language of love, it's highlighting this kind of steadfastness that Ruth displays for Naomi more than anything. And in fact, the only place that love is even said is in chapter 4. So we're going to break chapter 4 up into two parts. And the first half is really about the legal side of Ruth's redemption and this culminating event of Ruth and Naomi being redeemed. And so it's literally a redeemer stepping in to redeem somebody. This pattern of redemption here is very interesting, and I think it shows us something about the patterns of the Bible and points us to King David and Jesus Christ, and even how things are redeemed, how God sees redemption. So even though it's a little bit backwards here, today it's just so weird that a member of the family would marry another member of the family to redeem that part and propagate a lineage. That's just so far removed from our reality today that we get tangled up with that aspect. And in fact, that's part of the reason that it's a little bit weird, even if it is a love story, right? Because this is like West Virginia love story 101. West Virginia, and well, that's about it. Anyway, but let's jump into this. So we have chapter 4. I'm going to read this section, which is verses 1 through 12. Now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, "Turn aside, friend, sit down here." So you'll remember that Ruth and Boaz had this kind of rendezvous at night, and he said, "I'm going to take care of this immediately." So he does. So he turned and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. Then he said to the Redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech." She's selling it. "So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me, that I may know, for there is no one beside you to redeem it, and I come after you." And he said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "The day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance." Then the Redeemer said, "I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem it." So this is verses 1 through 6 that I just read. I'm going to pause here because Boaz doesn't really trick the guy, but almost. He's like, "Hey, you know Naomi, she's selling her farm." The other guy's like, "Oh, I could use some more land. That would be great. That's good for my inheritance," right? That's a net positive because the land is valuable. Then he says, "Oh yeah, and when you buy the land, it's cool because you get Ruth too, and you have to perpetuate her dead son's lineage." And so the relative would have been like, "Wait, I went from a net positive of getting land to a net negative. I have to perpetuate an entire other family and support them with this parcel of land." And so he's like, "Well, that's actually going to be a bad thing for my inheritance. Like, I can't afford that. Like, that's a net negative." So what's interesting is it goes from this lovey-dovey chapter 3 where Ruth and Naomi come up with this plan that even if it was a plan to seduce Boaz, doesn't work. And then Boaz is like, "I'm going to do things the right way." Boaz is appealing to the legal system here. In fact, even the setting up, going by the gate, that's where business happened. Back then, that's where business would have happened. He gets the appropriate elders involved. He gets the appropriate people involved. Sitting down is a position of legal authority, which is often going back to King David and Jesus and symbolism later on in the Gospels, sitting down is a sign of authority. Why? Because you would sit at the gate, you would do your business, you would sit in the synagogue, you would do your worship and business. And so, again, this whole idea, this is such a legalistic scene, and it really robs any idea of romance from this story. So, so you buy the field. That sounds like a good deal, but it's highlighting here also that this is a costly transaction for Boaz. It's not something that he's gaining a lot out of. So we'll go on in verses 7 through 12. Now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was the manner of attesting in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself," he drew off his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought the land from the hand of Naomi, all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. Also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day." Then all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman." So again, very interesting, legalistic, like this is a contract. They're showing, hey, he's doing the right things. He's going through the legal paces here. And it's also highlighting that, again, this is not something that's benefiting him. Any of the offspring aren't going to be a credit to Boaz. It's going to be a credit to Naomi and Ruth and the sons Mahlon, Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon. So it's actually his name that's going to be carried on here. So all of this inheritance is going to whatever offspring come out of this, right? The whole point is to so that this part of the tribe of Judah is reconciled instead of cut off, so that the redemption of this household happens to Naomi, who started off the story completely destitute. Now she's been completely redeemed. She's got the promise of a family. She's got the promise of inheritance for her family. She is, continued on in faithfulness at this point. She's come back, and Ruth is the instrument of redemption. And Ruth is not even an Israelite. Ruth was a Moabite. So this idea that Ruth came into the picture with nothing to bring to this except for faith in God, and then is ultimately the instrument of redemption just by being a hard worker, by being faithful, by being loving to the people of God and God's ways. All of this is on full display here. So this redemption happens through this Moabite woman, this foreigner. So pretty interesting section here. So that's the first half of chapter 4. Put down in the comments something that you liked about it. If something stood out, like and subscribe to catch all the videos as they come out. And with that, we'll finish up chapter 4 in the next video. All right? Peace.